Saba Stories. The strange truth of Cinderella's life. In the previous part of Cinderella's story, we saw that she was a proud and naughty girl since childhood. Her stepmother, who was a kind and intelligent woman, and her two kind sisters, Grizilla and Anastasia, always did Cinderella's work. When they grow up, one day Cinderella's stepmother decides to arrange for Cinderella to attend the prince's party. The prince will fall in love with her and take her to the palace, and Cinderella's troubles will end. So she went to the forest fairy and got her a beautiful dress and a pair of crystal shoes so that when Cinderella wears them, the prince will fall in love with her. On the other hand, the prince, who had not found a suitable girl for marriage, had to find a wife for himself at a party. Otherwise he had to marry any girl the king chose. The prince also went to a witch in the forest and took a spell from her. By reciting it, all the people in the banquet hall turned into statues and time stopped moving. But in a strange and unbelievable way, Cinderella, who had gone to the party with her stepmother and sisters, left the entrance door at the last moment and the spell did not affect her. After reading the spell, the prince went out of the palace and saw Cinderella running. At the same time, the prince realized that he had been tricked by the witch and that the witch had done something to control all the people in the city and ruled the country. The prince, who could not do anything alone, went to the forest to find a way to save the king and the people of her land from the witch, and now the story continues. Cinderella, who had entered the forest alone, entered a strange part of the forest. Tired, he got off the horse to rest. She leaned on a stone slab and fell asleep at the same time. At the same time, a fairy came and approached Cinderella. She waved her magic wand and Cinderella had a strange dream. Cinderella had returned to her childhood, when his mother had recently died and his father had married his stepmother. Cinderella's stepmother was a mean woman and her two half-sisters Grizilla and Anastasia always teased Cinderella. Little by little, Cinderella became a servant. She had to do all the housework, make food and clean the house and wash the clothes. She had to wait for her stepmother and sisters to eat and then she would eat the rest of the food. She was very lonely and in the attic. She was friends with mice and some birds. How many years have passed? Cinderella was very beautiful now, but she was wearing old and torn clothes. There was talk of a big celebration that was going to be held in the palace to choose the prince's wife. Cinderella really wanted to participate in this celebration. But her stepmother did not like him to meet the prince. Cinderella's stepmother had prepared very beautiful clothes for her daughters. Cinderella was also wearing her mother's dress. But when her stepmother saw her, she tore her clothes and told her that she should not participate in the celebration. Cinderella was very upset that she did not have a dress to attend the prince's party. He was crying and the birds and mice were his only friends and surrounded him. Suddenly a fairy appeared. The fairy told Cinderella that she would grant her wish as long as she always remained kind-hearted and kind. The fairy showed her a very beautiful dress. Then she turned her magic wand and turned a pumpkin into a carriage and mice into a horse. The fairy told Cinderella that she only had until midnight to return, otherwise the magic would be invalidated and she would return to her original state. Cinderella happily entered the ballroom. She saw her stepmother and sisters, but she had changed and become so beautiful that they did not recognize her. As soon as she entered the banquet hall, all eyes turned towards her. The king and his entourage also noticed his arrival. Suddenly the prince saw her and came towards her. In that beautiful night, the prince was by Cinderella's side all the time and did not take his eyes off her for a moment. Cinderella was very happy to meet the prince. Suddenly, the alarm clock reminded me of midnight. Cinderella remembered the fairy's words and quickly left the prince. The prince followed him. He ran quickly up the stairs. Because at any moment the magic could be invalidated and the prince would see his true face. While running, one of his crystal shoes fell on the stairs. The prince runs after him. He took the shoe and kept calling him. Once Cinderella woke up. He saw that she was wearing the same beautiful clothes and there was not a single piece of her crystal shoes on her feet. Cinderella realized that she had dreamed all this, as if he had lived every moment of it. Meanwhile, he suddenly saw a fairy next to him. The same fairy that he saw in his dream. Cinderella said,
I had a strange dream. You were also in my dream. Are you really a fairy?
Fairy said, Yes, it is true. I am a fairy. You also dreamed of a real life. Did you wish that dream was real and your stepmother and sisters treated you the same way? Cinderella said,
No, it was very terrible. They treated me very badly and forced me. They did not like me. Even though I did all their work, they still insulted me.
Fairy said, But this is how you treated them in your real life. They were very kind to you. But you made them suffer with your pride and selfishness. Now in your dream you had changed places with them. They treated you the way you behaved and were bad, and you saw how painful and tormenting this behavior is. Cinderella said,
I am very sorry that I was always bad and behaved badly in front of their goodness. I would like to go back and make up for my past bad behavior.
Fairy smiled and said, It is very good that you realized your mistakes, but now the situation has changed a little. Unfortunately, the sorcerer has cast a spell on all the people of the city and has taken over the power. We have to save people from the evil. Which? Cinderella said.
But how?
The fairy answered, You can solve this problem with the help of the prince. First we have to find the prince. To be continued.